Let's talk about what you should know before going to a tax deed auction. First off, before we get started, my name is Casey Dimon. I am the host of the Tax Sell Podcast and the founder of the Tax Sell Academy. I'm excited to help you get prepared for your first tax deed auction. So here's the thing. Tax deed investing can be incredibly rewarding, can be incredibly lucrative, but it does not come without its surprises to the new investors. There are plenty of hurdles that you need to watch out for as a new investor. So today, we'll be taking a dive into some common things that new investors are often shocked by before you step foot into that auction room or sign on to that auction platform to place your online bids. Let's get right to it. Number one, let's talk about the reality of tax sale properties. Let's start with something that surprises most new investors. The condition of the properties is often very poor. Here's the simple truth. Most tax sale properties are in very bad condition. Think about it. If the owner is not paying their property taxes, which ensure that they are able to keep their ownership of that property, do you really think they're paying for regular maintenance? You know, constantly checking for leaks, keeping fresh paint on the house, planting flowers every spring, changing the AC filters every 30 days. Yeah, they probably aren't doing any of that stuff. This means that you will encounter things like overgrown yards that look like jungles, sometimes even filled with fun little rodents. You'll have homes with broken windows, roof damage, maybe even the roof is completely gone, maybe walls are gone, or you might have some squatters living inside that you have to deal with. You're also going to find properties that have been completely abandoned for years. And a lot of these properties are going to be uninhabitable. And don't believe everything you see online, especially when it comes to photos taken by auction companies or Google Street View or whoever else you find photos of that property from. I've seen properties that have had walls missing, roofs missing. I've seen properties that were filled with water, and some properties have just entirely collapsed in on themselves. Here's my advice. Expect the worst and budget accordingly. If your property needs repairs, make sure that that is factored into your maximum bid amount if that is your approach. If you're going to be rehabbing that property, make sure you give yourself a large cushion. I always suggest that you lay eyes on the property before you think about buying it. If you personally cannot look at that property, maybe it's on the other side of the country, then hire a scout. This is something I teach inside the Tax Sell Academy. I teach ways to do it correctly. Otherwise, you are gambling that the house is still there and that the property is not underwater or has not fallen down. Know what you are bidding on. The next one, beware of junk properties. It's kind of on that same token. This goes far beyond a property that's just in poor condition. Here's the deal. Not every property at a tax deed auction is a hidden gem you're going to make millions of dollars off of. In fact, many of them are frankly worthless. We're talking about strips of land that are too small to build on, that somebody will probably buy at this tax deed auction. They'll realize it's worthless. They'll lose it, and you'll see it a few years down at another tax deed auction. These are frequent flyers. The same thing can be said for landlocked parcels with no access or properties that are literally underwater or some other sort of major issue. I get emails and messages every single day, every day, from people who bought properties that they should not have purchased. These are the properties that are strips of land, houses that have been demolished or burned down, or otherwise just junk. That's a hard and very, very expensive learning lesson. So how do you avoid this? It's very simple. You learn what you're doing and then you research properties correctly. Every situation that I hear about are from those people that did not take the time to learn what they were doing. They did not know how to research properties. They did not get formal training like we offer in the Tax Sell Academy. I can usually look back through their research or lack thereof and spot a rather obvious red flag in a matter of seconds. And give me the address, I'll search it online. Boom, I know exactly what they missed within seconds. Take the time to learn and then utilize every tool at your disposal. The more you learn up front, the more you invest in yourself, then the more you apply that learning throughout your research, the better you're going to end up and the lower your chances of buying a junk property. Next one, Let's talk about title issues. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of tax deed investing. So when you win a property at a tax sale auction, you're usually not getting a property that has a so-called clean title. Instead, you're getting what most title insurance companies refer to as a clouded title. Long story short, what this means is they will not provide insurance against the chain of title for the property that you're selling, which means it can be difficult to sell that property through conventional methods like utilizing a realtor or selling to anybody that has to get a mortgage. Now, tax deeds, the tax foreclosure process, wipe out just about all prior claims on the property. Now, some liens like governmental liens might still stick around, so make sure you check your state law. So it's not like you're buying a tax sale property and, there's a whole bunch of issues with the chain of title because you owe everybody money. No, that's not how it works. Instead, title insurance companies just aren't comfortable with issuing title policies on those properties. So while the title might seem clear to us based on state law, those pesky title companies still will refuse to issue title insurance in many situations. So what do you do? Well, there's 4 solutions, and I've got episodes on all these, but here's the quick rundown. You have a suit to quiet title. It's a legal process. It's a lawsuit where a court will clear the title and make it marketable. It's reliable, but it does take time. It does take money. You have to pay an attorney fee. You have to go through the entire court process, which in some jurisdictions takes many months. The second one is called a tax deed certification. Some title companies will allow a third party, known as a tax foreclosure certification company, to research that tax foreclosure file to ensure everything was done correctly. And of course, there's a bond attached to it, but you pay them their certification fee. They certify it to the title company, and the title company then says, yes, we will allow title insurance to be written against that property. The third one is to get a deed from all former owners and lien holders that held an interest at the time of that tax foreclosure. Now, you have to get the title company's approval ahead of time before you go out there and start trying to track people down. But simply put, if the only issue you might have is the former owner, get them to sign a quick claim deed to you in exchange for a few $100. This can speed things up dramatically if you're able to track them down. It'll also help reduce your expense when it comes to clearing that title, again, if the title company allows it. And number 4, lastly, do nothing. Do nothing at all. That's right, just turn right around, flip that property to another investor with an as-is title. You will be selling it at a discount, but if you do it correctly, if you buy correctly, you can still make quite a bit of money. And they'll have room to make some money as well. And you can sell it quickly. Everybody wins. This is something I've done for hundreds and hundreds of lots all across the country. You should factor in the cost of clearing the title into your investment calculations if you plan to sell it to an end user who will likely want title insurance. Otherwise, factor in the discount that you'll be providing for selling it as is. And again, episodes on all that stuff. Next one. Here's a frustrating reality of tax sale auctions. Last minute redemptions. This happens when the property owner pays their taxes, sometimes just hours before the tax sale auction. They'll finally scrounge up all the money, go in, redeem that property, and in exchange, the county will pull that property from auction. It will no longer be offered. So you as the investor oftentimes have no idea until you sit down and they read through the redemption list. Now, you might have your heart set on buying that property, but the property that you were just so excited about already counting all the money you're going to make has now been redeemed and is no longer available. And sometimes this might even mean that a large chunk of the properties that you have researched are removed from the tax sale at the very last minute. Yes, it can be disappointing, especially if you've done your research and you were prepared to bid and to buy these properties. Here's the thing. You cannot control that. It's part of the business. There is no reason to complain, especially to me, or to get stressed out about it. I get email after email from frustrated tax sale investors, often new investors, that say, I did all this research and the properties that I wanted were redeemed from the auction. We can't control this. First off, you should know through your research of previous auctions about how many properties will end up being sold at a tax sale. You should not show up to the auction and get disappointed when there's 50 properties that get redeemed at the last minute when that happens at every single auction before in that area. Take the time to research previous auction results and previous auction lists to see the redemption rate last minute. You should know what you're going into before you sit down at that auction. And then the other thing too is don't get emotionally attached to one property. Treat it as just another investment opportunity. You should not be falling in love with a property. You need to have an entire list of properties to bid on. If one gets redeemed, no problem. Just move on to the next property. If there's only one auction at that property that you were interested in, maybe you don't want to go to that auction. Maybe you need to start justifying the time and the cost and the expense of going to that auction when there's a chance that that one property you're interested in will get redeemed. Instead, maybe focus on different areas. Something else is to stay flexible. Redemption is part of the process. Again, there's always another auction. There's always another market. There's always another deal waiting for you if you keep pushing forward. And finally, I want to talk to you about the next one. That is competition. A lot of new investors worry about this. A lot of new investors kind of get stressed out about this. They see big crowds at auctions, or they feel intimidated by seasoned investors with deep pockets. Pockets that perhaps are deeper than their own pockets. There's a story that I tell in Tax Sell Playbook about the very first auction that I went to. I was 18 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up making a whole lot of mistakes. But if you want to talk about being intimidated by going into an auction setting, that was me at 18 years old with very, very minimal money to my name, probably much less than every single other person in that room. I've been there. I've done that. Here's the truth. Competition exists, absolutely, but it is not the end of the world. There's a few things you can do about it. You can expand into other markets. The big city auctions are too crowded for you. Go to auctions in a smaller county or more rural areas. Oftentimes, these have much higher margins if you go and you seek them out. You will find less competition and better deals. You can also get creative. Focus on niche strategies like targeting specific property types, specific areas that others might overlook. And also, make sure you don't overbid. It is very easy to get caught up in the excitement, but you have to stick to your budget. Remember, the goal here is to make money, not winning at all costs because your ego gets in the way. There's lots of ways to beat so-called deep-pocketed investors. There's lots of ways around the competition. I've got dozens and dozens of videos on YouTube. I've got podcast episodes on this, and this is something that we really go into depth inside the Tax Sell Academy. Do not worry about competition. Yes, it does exist, but there are ways around it if you strategize correctly. So let's go over what we learn before you head to your first tax deed auction. Expect properties to be in poor condition and budget for repairs. If they're better condition than what you would expect, hey, that's going to be something that you will benefit from, but oftentimes they're in much worse condition than most new investors are expecting. The second one is to watch out for junk properties, strips of land, properties that you can't access, that kind of thing. Make sure you perform very thorough due diligence. The next one is you need to be prepared to handle title issues. Do not let the fact that you cannot get title insurance immediately prevent you from investing, and do not allow that to shock you when you go to sell your first property. The next one is to anticipate last-minute redemptions. Stay flexible. And then lastly, do not let competition intimidate you. There's always another market. There's always strategies to deal with this. Keep these points in mind because you'll be better prepared to navigate your first tax deed auction. You'll be able to avoid costly mistakes, and you will help set yourself up for success. That's all I got for you today. I truly hope that has helped you out. For more information on the tax sell business, make sure you check out TaxSellAcademy.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode or our YouTube videos, make sure you do me a huge favor. Leave me some positive feedback, comment, tap that 5-star rating, that thumbs up button, whatever you have there in front of your screen or on your device. Let me know that you enjoyed this episode because it really helps us out in the podcasting algorithm world and also encourages us to make these free training videos for folks just like you. And again, TaxSellAcademy.com if we can offer additional help. Take care, folks, and make it a successful day. Bye-bye.